Works too, brah.
Hey, Jesse.
Hey, Dr. Goodman.
What's up?
I'm going to let you
How
say
we
hi to
doing?
everybody on Instagram before I get rid of this.
Look at that. So high tech. What's up, everybody on Instagram? Join us on YouTube and let's do the thing.
Going to YouTube, guys. I'll catch y'all later. All right.
Ooh, the
How's
volume
it
off
out in
on that.
California, Eric? What's
It's
that?
really good in California. It's really good in California right now. I accidentally had our live link playing so people could hear that in the background. But I have that up so that I can see questions. If anybody has questions, guys, girls, we feed off questions. Give us questions.
Yeah. So, what do we want to focus on for everybody today, Eric? I know you found some really cool stuff coming up in the
Yeah.
news, and uh,
Well, I want to. Okay, so actually, Jesse, before you start with a couple decompression breaths with us, let me explain to people a little bit about what has been happening recently and some of the COVID and Corona stuff. We have zero ability to cure coronavirus in any way, shape, or form from our wheelhouse, our camp, our biomechanical place. But all of the sudden, the press and doctors and all of these different people are coming to an incredible realization that the lung tissue, the volume of the lung tissue, is in the back of the ribs. It's much more so at the back of the body than at the front of the body. And oh, they're putting these people on ventilators and they're laying them on their backs and they're compressing the biggest expansive piece of breathing. I saw Chris Cuomo and a few other different people come on and start to talk about the location of the lung tissue being very, very important and how they're starting to treat COVID patients that are having issues. I'm going to put a very brief statement up here that you can listen to. It's going to take me a second to figure this out, so bear with me. Here we go. And I want you to just hear a little bit for just about 10 seconds or so here.
can you turn the volume up, Eric?
I'll try to, yeah.
We're getting any volume. Those that can read lips are in luck. You can't play back audio like that. So we're learning the hard way.
Oh, okay. Well, I learned the hard way. Thank you, Paul. So as it turns
Give us a
out, you
breakdown?
can't play back audio. I will. I happen to have this delightful text that goes into detail about the location and biomechanical capacity of the human rib cage. And I suggest if you have not yet learned about true to form or foundation training, decompression breathing, that you realize that we've been playing this game a lot longer than the people that are just finding out about it. We've been telling people where things are and how to do things like breathe well and stand up strong and breathe powerfully and access the full surface area of your lung tissue for many, many, many years. Because not only is it good for pneumonias, things of that nature, but it's great for health. It's great for posture. It's great for strength. It's great for genuinely feeling well. And it's even better when you don't feel so well to bring yourself back into it. A real quick little display here will show you that my crazy ass literally has pictures of the rib cage that surround me all the time so that I can always be looking at what's happening. Why is all of this tissue so interesting? Now, what I want you to take a look at is that rib cage. The vast majority of the lung tissue is not right where that sternum is. It fills this. It fills that back of the rib cage. It fills that bowl at the back of the sternum, really. The sternum is like a shield that sort of pushes the air back behind you. The sternum shouldn't drop down. The sternum should be inflated against, and then the rest of the air should push back. against the outer boundaries of the posterior rib cage. How do I know? Practice. That's about it. Practice and a whole lot of patients that have had similar success to myself by doing this whole thing. So that's my initial idea on, let me delete a couple of quick videos that I thought might play and clearly will not play. Okay. That's my initial idea on decompression breathing. Matt DeWitt, I'm gonna make a very clear statement here. I have absolutely no idea if deep breathing will help you get over it faster. All I can say is that deep breathing is starting to be looked at as one of the reasons that ventilators are not working as well as people thought they were working. They're starting to look at positioning of the body as having a small impact on oxygenation, chemical respiration, and in things like pneumonia, where it's very, very difficult to fill the lungs because of mucus and because of different things that are filling those individual alveoli sacs that need to inflate. Oh man, the most little bit of oxygen you can get, the most little bit of inflation you can get is so important for creating oxygenation in the body and for getting chemicals out of the body as well. So when you think of things, don't think of anything as, oh, this is going to help me get it better. I don't know what this will do for coronavirus. I have no idea. I'm in no way, shape, or form an infectious disease specialist or even fan for that matter. But I know that breathing well is extraordinarily metabolically active. I know that a lot of our immune system and immune cells requires healthy oxygenation and healthy chemical respiration in order for those things to be there for us. I have absolutely no idea if this will help you with corona, but I'm very intrigued in seeing that the general public and press is looking at biomechanics as a very important piece of the ventilation and ultimately pulmonology puzzle. So I just love to see that. I'm going to keep looking down and try to find a couple questions here. Actually, Jesse, do you want to take us into some decompression before we hit other questions?
Yeah, let's go through. I want to throw a couple different tools at people to try to experiment a little bit before we just go into a traditional measuring sticks,
Great.
Decompression breath like we teach. Eric, are you going to do it on the floor? Like, what's your plan over there? Are you going to demo?
Right here. I got this little space.
Okay.
I'll aim my camera down and you'll be able to see it.
So I'm going to touch on a couple of the items for everybody in that. Bring an awareness to the rib cage itself. And so let's bring our hands to those lateral ribs. So we're going to think the sides of the rib cage here. Let me angle mine up just a little bit. So we want to find the sides of the rib cage, and then we're going to stand up nice and tall. So everybody think about reaching the crown of your head for the ceiling. So if you look at Eric, he's going into a very passive posture. He's going to use his head to lift him up. So remember, we've got to get ourselves up and off the collapsed rib cage first. We do that by lengthening up through the back of the neck. So think of the cue that we give people: chin back, chest up. They're going to bring the hands to those side ribs. So everyone think of making two half domes with their hands. If you do FT, think of half spheres of tension on your side rib cage. And then go slow on the next few breaths. You guys can kind of start going in your nose and out the mouth, but really slow. Try to push your hands apart with every inhalation. So you're thinking in the nose for 2 to 3 seconds, breathing in. Feel that rib cage expand. Exhale, slow and controlled out the mouth, and see if you can subtly draw your abdominal. Think of a subtle contraction of the abdominal. And you guys just go through reps here. You can see Eric's just practicing while I'm giving you cues to think about. You're expanding the rib cage between the hands on the inhale. So think about breathing wide into both hands. And as you exhale, try closing a little bit of your mouth, a little bit of the passageway to let air out, and try to contract your abdominal as like a drawing in on the exhale. And just do 3 or 4 more of these, and we're going to adjust the position a little bit. So breathe wide into the hands and slow out the mouth while you try to contract that abdominal. And when I say contract, we're not shortening and tightening like a crunch here. thinking of a corset around your waist that's getting zipped up. And each time you breathe into the rib cage, you're picking it up and off that corset just a little bit higher. And then let's shake it out for a second. Eric, bring your hands down. And can we turn profile? And I want everyone to think about they're putting their hand on their chest now. And we're going to go back to the same thing that Eric started with, where we stand up nice and tall and we lengthen through the back neck. Now, the goal with the hand on the chest for everybody is that you don't see the hand move forward at all as you breathe. So we're not taking a chest breath. You're actually going to put your intent into breathing the back of your ribs away from that hand. You see where Eric's touching. He's looking at breathing and expanding the back side of his ribs. Eric, if you can back up towards the camera a little bit, I'll tell you when you're good. Back up towards me a little bit more. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. Maybe right there, and then pull the elbows wide. Yep. Go forward just like a step or two. Yep. Now, that hand goes on the front chest, everybody. I'm going to have mine there. You can see Eric's backside of his body. And we're going to, in the nose again, push the back of the ribs. The air is being pushed into the back side of the rib cage away from the hand. In the nose slow, exhale even slower. Draw the stomach in. If you're watching my hand, it's not really moving as I breathe in. Keep going. 3, 4, 5 breaths slow. You're thinking in the nose. I like to kind of think of my teeth barely touch, and I'm just letting the air out very controlled. I brought my hand to my stomach. Neither hand is really moving as the back of my rib cage expands away from them. Now, we're going to go into a traditional decompression breath. After you guys have done 2 or 3 more like that, shake it out. Now we're going to go into how we like to set everybody up. And we'll just take the legs about hip width apart. And so we don't leave out fundamental principles. With your legs hip width apart, just pivot the toes in ever so slightly. So thinking they're subtly pigeon-toed. Take a second, look down, make sure that you've turned them in ever so slightly. You can see it on Eric. Pick up the toes for a minute and just try to find the pads of your feet. The pad at the base of the big toe, the base of your pinky toe, and your heel, and then grip the floor with the toes. So we're actively doing our initial phase, what we call anchoring, tying in muscle chains of the lower body. Now let's bring in our measuring sticks. The pinkies go to the top of the pelvis, thumbs go to the low ribs, and we're going to draw the elbows wide. Notice Eric's elbows are drawing to the side walls. He's not letting them flop back like chicken wings here. We draw them out nice and wide. Then we lengthen up tall through the crown of the head. Pulling, thinking about you're reaching the crown of your head up as you lengthen through the back neck. And I want everyone to think again of those subtle cues now of breathing the back of the rib cage wide on the inhale. Think about pushing your shoulders apart as we breathe in and up. And we exhale, the stomach is going to wrap and pull in. Breathe and reach the back ribs wide. Exhale and pull. And keep going, guys. Slow inhalations right now through the nose. I'm going to keep coaching and cueing. Eric's in position. Your elbows are still actively drawing to the sides. You're still actively gripping the floor with both feet. You're still reaching up through the crown of the head. Check in as you breathe in the nose on the next inhale. Breathe, try to put the intent into those low ribs, and then check in if your shoulders are hugging up to your ears. If they are, pull them down wide, and then keep that breath active, breathing and expanding between the shoulder blades, exhaling and pulling the stomach in. Now, if you want, we can float the hands out to a sphere attention height of the heart. Squeeze the fingertips. Once we're here, check in. The neck is still long. We're squeezing the fingers. You're still pushing and gripping the floor with both feet. Now think of the lowest ribs as you breathe in the nose one more time is breathing and reaching away from that sphere that's in front of you. Breathe and expand through the nose. Exhale and pull the stomach in. As you breathe in the next couple of breaths, these are the cues I'm going to give you. Your next inhale, your intent is to try to feel the lowest ribs lift up and off the pant lining, up and away from the kidneys. On the exhales, that stomach's wrapping and drawing in. On your next breath, I want your intent as you squeeze those fingers and expand the back ribs to try to breathe behind your chest wall, the front of your chest. Try to think about breathing away from the front of your chest, that sternum. Next exhale, relax and shake everything out. And so for all of you guys out there, that's just a handful of different cues that I'm lobbing to the interwebs with the idea that not every cue triggers for everybody. Not every cue resonates with everybody. So I'm giving you guys each a different one in the intent of guiding you into that posterior cage expansion. We got a tutorial video on YouTube. You guys can watch that. I'm going to bring Eric back in and turn it over to him for a little bit. Pass to Eric.
Yeah, appreciate that. So we had a really great question on Instagram the other day. It was very general. So I don't know if I can answer it, but it was a really good question. Why are my cues so obsessive compulsive specific? Excellent question. And I promise you, there is a very legitimate rationale for everything I teach. I've got books filled with it. I've got a brain filled with anatomy knowledge that every now and then tries to just find its way out and say something interesting. But the reason that this is so, it's just specific. The chin doesn't do this, it does this. The shoulders don't do this, they do this. You know, the wrists don't move, the shoulders move the wrists. The feet don't move, the hips move the feet. The toes have to be a specific way. It's really obnoxious. Trust me, I understand that. But I've also been a doctor now for almost 15 years. I also, before I was a doctor, became an anatomy geek to the highest degree possible and taught as a teacher assistant to every anatomy class I could in college and in graduate school. And before that, before college, I became a personal trainer. And the first thing I did when I learned how to be a personal trainer at 18 years old, I'm now 39 years old, was I got Frank Netter's anatomy flashcards. And before I ever took any tests or anything for the personal trainer thing, I memorized all of those flashcards. So since 1999, I have been memorizing the shit out of anatomy to an obsessive compulsive degree. And that, my friends, is why my exercises are obsessive compulsive in nature. And that is also why they work as well as they do. Let me go back to this YouTube page here, and I'm going to take a look at some of the active questions that we've got going on, and I'll do the best. That's a great question, Renee. Why do some people get vertigo from decompression breathing? Excellent question. And I'm actually going to pull up my Visible Body app to share that with you. So give me just a moment, and we're going to talk about the anatomy a little bit of some of the... There we go. There we go. Just be patient with me here, y'all. I'm doing my best. There we go. So right now we see the transversus abdominis, but we're not really going to stick on this all that much. What I really want you to see is much more at the skull. Right about, yep, keep going. Keep going. Right about, almost there. Right there. The brain stem travels on the inside of a lot of these bones here. Through the ear canal, there's tons of movable pathways and passages from the vibration of the ossicles in your ears that give you sound, all the way to the semicircular canals of the cochlea and the vestibular tract. When a person does decompression breathing well, especially the first 10 or 15 breaths that they're expanding upon, we tend to get a lift at that area, right where this vertebra and this ligament meet this area, the foramen magnum of the skull. Through there goes the brain stem, goes tremendous amounts of arterial pressure at the vertebrobasilar artery. It has a lot of pressure from the jugular vein coming down, but much more from the carotid artery going up. As we alter the expansion of the diaphragm, the space surrounding the large veins and arteries of the heart, it does change the pressure that goes up to the head momentarily. For some people, they get legitimately lightheaded. For some people, they get a little bit dizzy. If you're getting a little bit dizzy, I would argue that it should go away very quickly upon continuing, maybe at a 50% decreased intensity. Taking those same decompression breaths with almost all of the focus being, pardon me for a second while I switch this, all of the focus being, you see where these little red bits are? Not the transversus abdominis, but these small ones like that. You see those? That is the elastic resistance to your sternum sticking way out ahead of you and pulling the rest of your diaphragm and abdomen and back muscles and neck muscles off kilter. So the next time you're decompression breathing, I want you to find this internal rib cage muscle. I want you to find its surface area with an inhale. And then as soon as you feel that subtle stretch behind the sternum, I want you to focus all of that, all of it, right here to the small floating ribs at the bottom of the rib cage. And I want you to take the tension you feel at that front muscle, that thoracic muscle, and I want you to pull away from it using the incredibly powerful transversus abdominis, which attaches to the thoracolumbar fascia, which you can't see here, but assume that when the transversus abdominis contracts well, it is pulling the back edges of the lower rib cage away from center, and it is pulling towards center in a way that sort of doesn't converge to the belly button at all, but instead gives us this long abdomen. And this is the deepest layer of abdominal tissue right here. So I know that what we're talking about is changes in pressure at the skull and the brain and dizziness and maybe a little bit of vertigo. But what I'm saying is that a lot of that vertigo comes from the lift at the skull and a discrepancy at the rib cage being a little bit too anterior at the sternum, therefore not allowing this big pressure gauge, massive pressure gauge that surrounds the abdominal aorta, all of the digestive tissue, all sorts of stuff. That pressure gauge at the transversus abdominis is going to give you more help with the vertigo than just about anything else that we can do, other perhaps than a Halstead maneuver or one of the vertigo relaxing maneuvers that are very present in medicine.
Eric, can you touch on when you say a little too anterior on the rib cage?
Okay. So you're
now.
seeing try to stuff out.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll.
I got you.
You got me? Okay. So that you can see what I'm doing here. That's a circle. Everybody agrees with that. 180 degrees is a half circle. Edges of the rib cage goes all the way to large cage. Tons of surface area back here. And there's this connection. If you do a 180-degree breath, one of the 180-degree expansion this way. That's the front half of my rib cage acquiescing to my demand that it expands. A 180-degree expansion the other way would drop my sternum and expand the back of it. Neither of those is comfortable in any way, shape, or form. They are both relatively crappy breathing patterns, even though there's some muscle involved. Right. The 360-degree breath, that expansion at the torso that I'm talking about when I'm answering Renee's question about vertigo up here, coming a lot from the band of tension that surrounds here, where gigantic blood vessels pump through our body and change pressures in our blood vessels and our blood pressure. Things like orthostatic hypotension are a result of a lot of that stuff. When you can stop breathing out this way or tightening up too much this way and just breathing into your abdomen or lower back, you're going to find this pulley system, which is a 360-degree front, sides, and back expansion that looks like that. When I do it, it's not my belly popping out. I'm not doing that. All up top. front, back, and sides. I do it very patiently. And once I'm as big as I can be, I try to maintain it by tightening that transversus abdominis even more, by pulling from the back of my body, from those floating ribs, towards the center of me, like a wraparound, like I'm pulling a scroll towards center at the front of me where the linea alba is. And I'm opening that scroll at the back. That scroll is kind of being broadened at the back as it wraps into the center. It's not a corset. The transversus abdominis is not a corset. It is not a vacuum. It does not pull it in at the front to make it tight. It's expand the ribs up and off the kidneys and maintain healthy integrated posture at the SCM muscles, at the sternalis, at the thoracis behind it, at the diaphragm below it, and most importantly, at the wrapping from the back to the front of the transversus abdominis. But you're not tying a string here for that corset, guys. There's no string here. It's a pull that pulls from a wrap here. There's no pull. There's no tightness. This isn't where it's locked. It's very, very ongoing pressure. It's a continued resistance. So it's just a response, and that response initiates here. Transversus abdominis, the tone setter for your entire abdominal pathway. The reason the 8-point plank works as well as it does, the reason decompression breathing works as well as it does, is that subtle, relatively obnoxious initiation of the transversus abdominis with every inhalation. When you get that, it's good. I'm going to jump on to a couple more questions here.
Corset, if I use the corset cue, I need to make sure I pre-tense it with don't get caught up on a central tie. I just, when I visualize that, I'm visualizing the whole sides wrapping around and converging all as one towards center. But as you say that, I'm going like, ooh, I need to fix that cue a little bit.
I got a great question here from Ed Ruth. Please explain how decompression breathing can help with intra-abdominal pressure, and specifically a sports hernia, an inguinal or a femoral hernia. Yeah, so Jess and I have talked at length for years now about the differences between intra-abdominal pressure and decompression. I can't hear you, Jess. Hang on.
Nothing.
You good, Jess?
Hold on, I might turn my ear.
I got you. I can hear you now.
You got me again?
I got you. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Cool. I got you. Okay. So what I was saying, so Jess and I, and Jeff, maybe we can do this together. We've been talking for years about the varying differences between what I would consider resistance training breathing, which is intra-abdominal pressure, which is 100% the same idea of 360-degree breathing. The difference is that it happens at the soft tissue of the abdomen. It fills the surface area and pushes the outer boundaries of the abdomen, the obliques, and the thoracolumbar fascia all the way uniformly. Intra-abdominal bracing is what we would use for kettlebells, for squats, for deadlifting, for pull-ups, for punches, and wrestling and sex. That's where force goes through the spine, and who knows where it's going to get. Decompression breathing, however, makes every single action you take towards abdominal bracing and abdominal breathing, and it makes it more efficient. There's this very simple idea that abdominal breathing is sort of a tension. It's like you take as deep of a breath as you can right here, and then you hold, and you do the same thing right here, and you kind of take as big of a breath as you can right here. You push your flanks out. And you hold, and then you do the same thing at the back. You kind of tap the back, and you just push it out. If you've never learned proper weightlifting, Olympic weightlifting, you've never taken a DNS course, something like that, you haven't really learned these things, and I just absolutely ask you, go learn accurate abdominal bracing. There's many ways to learn it. There's brilliant people that teach it all over the place. And in fact, the one thing in this world that makes me useful and unique is hip hinging well and decompression breathing, setting you up for more strength more application, and more efficiency during your abdominal bracing. A real quick summary. 360 degrees here, resistance training, abdominal bracing, DNS, which is dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, a wonderful program if you have not heard of it and learned it. 360 degrees here, hey y'all, that's foundation training. That's decompression breathing. And that sets the tone for everything below it to have more length, more space. And the way muscles work is the more length they can gather, the more elastic potential they have to contract and deliver force powerfully. You got anything on that one, Jess?
No, I think it's as you nailed it. Really is something that I like. Everybody I train with, I encourage them to become a dedicated student of both, recognize the application of both, and then be able to transition back and forth. And for the people that are doing the quarantine workouts that I'm putting up on streaming every day, some of those workouts we've been playing with where we do our foundation training and then we transition into drills that I've really enjoyed and used with a lot of athletes and found quick application where they can pick it up quick of intra-abdominal breathing, knowing the difference between intra-abdominal breathing and bracing, because that's more of an abdominal contraction, then learning how to play with that dial in the sense of, if you're doing body weight work, being able to inflate that cylinder and not necessarily have to worry about contracting. But if you start loading your frame, you start swinging kettlebells, the kettlebell practice, each time the bell's out in front of you and you're connecting. And by connecting, I mean those of us that are swing it and have a practice that's a little bit more in depth than just the pick up and swing, is you're able to contract every muscle from the neck down uniformly and create intra-abdominal bracing, and then reinflate that cylinder and go back into the hip hinge, because that's how you protect your spine. So if all that sounds like a foreign language right now, guys, look at our strength program because we touch on it. Look at any of the organizations. Pavel's book, The Naked Warrior, is all about body weight for the one-arm push-up, the one-legged squat, the pistol. But it's like $9, but it's a really good 5 to 10 pages of intra-abdominal breathing, the need for it, how to do it for body weight strength, which, as we talk about all the time, Eric and I, is that true strength starts by being able to control your body and have a very resilient frame that you then load, and you increase that external load and not break down in that process.
I like it, man. I like it. I'm just setting up a couple things on my end here that I want to show people. So what's nice, and I don't know if you're going to get any sound here, but I'm going to start. Jess, if you want to just kind of work with everybody here for a moment, I'm going to set up one quick video to show them about what you're talking about here.
In regards to still staying on
baseline
abdominal breathing,
strength. Do me a favor. Show them. Yeah, show them a little bit of a hip chop.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So, guys, what Eric's talking
You're
about
good. Go ahead.
is it's real. Sorry, one more time.
You're good.
Okay. Sorry, guys. The little bit of delay is like. So what Eric's talking about is a hip chop. But when we talk about, I'm going to show you guys real quick. This was the ongoing joke the other day, but I'm going to take the shirt off. I'm going to show you a decompression breath, and I'm going to show you what the intra-abdominal breath looks like. And again, you can learn it for a kettlebell practice, a strength practice. You can also learn it from a therapeutic standpoint, which is where those things that Eric mentioned, things like DNS, dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, come into play. They're using that through the developmental stages of life. I'm talking to you guys from a strict, you're doing your foundation, you're out of pain. Now we're focusing on a performance aspect. So when I take this off,
before you
I'm going to show you guys
before you get naked. Time out. Hang on 1 second. I want to just get this video going real quick, and then you can take your pants off.
Don't make it sound so bad.
Oh, naked, sure. Then you can take your shirt off. Sure. I've
been quarantined a while, man.
All right. Can you guys see this?
Yeah, it's small. So basically what you guys are watching right now is, as Eric's playing this video, is one of our coaches, Daniel Wade, is a Central Florida fireman. And I just want to preface this, that everybody looks at this guy and has said, we need a guy, like, show us somebody that's been injured. He's gone through spine surgery. He's dealt with all the stuff associated with the back injury, including trying to stay as an active fireman while dealing with debilitating back pain. And what he's showing you is, when I look at that video, I'm watching a guy that goes into position with a powerful hip hinge. I can see him apply his anchor and actively integrate muscle chains for his hip extensors. I'm watching him make a expansive intra-abdominal breath, and I see him shrugging his shoulders down, really engaging his lats. So this whole coordinated body movement as he stands up strong with that bell and controls it back down. And yes, that's extremely light for him. But what I've mentioned with a lot of people is the ability to coordinate all of that is the purpose, in my mind, of the exercise. You know, is being able that when you go out in day-to-day life and you're picking up your kids, you're picking up toys, anything, is that you don't have to think about it. That subconscious habit has been ingrained through, 10, 15 minutes a day of foundation training, priming patterns. And when you bring in the strength practice 2, maybe 3 days a week, those are the things you're focused on, not just ripping heavy weight and going as fast as you can and getting a big sweat on. It's like really honing in on why we're doing these things and those habitual patterns.
That was really good explanation, Jess. We had a question that alludes to this, which was, can foundation training be a standalone workout program? And no, I don't think it is. I really genuinely do not think it is. I think that it is largely focused on the posterior chain and decompression breathing, which are 2 very important ranges of motion and 2 very important skills to all the time improve upon. I believe in that more than I believe in anything. But you have to have overall strength. You have to have pushing and pulling capacity. You don't have to be dominant strong. You don't say, I'm so powerful, I can push, I can knock people. That's a different kind of strength. That's not what I'm talking about. There is an internal strength that is the deepest layers of your body. And the ones that we address are the posterior chain, the transversus abdominis, the diaphragm, the sternocleidomastoid muscles, and the adductors. We address the very, very, very deep central lining layer of the human body. And I'm going to keep talking on this, but I'm going to bring up another anatomy idea here. And we're going to talk about the frame. And let me pull up another picture here. Let's get the midline and the lats. And then I'll switch it after this to the whole body. I would say that this is very much the focus point of foundation training, what you see here. Glutes, the medial adductors. I would add the hamstrings on this for sure. I would add the posterior capsule of the shoulder. I would add the tibialis anterior. Those are this is foundation training, what you see here. The erector muscles of the spine, the lats that are typically on top of them and powerful. I'm sorry, not on top of them, deep to them. It's the pec minors elongating. It's the sternocleidomastoid, taking the skull and the neck to an accurate length and taking the weight of the skull into this big, strong muscle instead of the tiny ones that support the back of the neck. It's taking the iliacus muscle here and here in the blue, and it's teaching them to allow the hips to stay powerfully midline towards center so that the psoas muscle that travels near it and through it can have an accurate pathway. The decompression breathing that we work on directly impacts the psoas right where you see that thicker part of the blue band up top where it inserts into the spine. That's like 4 or 5 spinal levels. If those are compressed, your psoas does not work very well. It's painful, your back hurts, your hips hurt, your neck hurts, lots of things hurt. And there's a huge emotional capacity to the fascia and the lining of the psoas because of nerves that infiltrate it. So foundation training hits these things. Now I'm going to show you what foundation training doesn't hit. This is really what foundation training doesn't hit. And there's a lot of it. And I want to be really clear on that. I love the idea that everybody needs foundation training, and I'll be honest, I believe it. I think that everybody needs a little foundation training. I really do. But it's not all you need. Just like everybody does a great job eating an apple or a banana, but if that's all you eat, well, you're going to get pretty hungry, and you're going to need some other nutrients down the line eventually. And foundation training is a very healthy movement system. In fact, I'm going to coin a friend of mine, Katie Bowman's term. Katie is a brilliant biomechanics pioneer and just genius. And Katie has the term nutritious movement, because movement should be nutritious. It should nurture you. It should fulfill you. It should satisfy you. And it should be a building block for your future success and health. Katie Bowman's books are all over the place. If you don't know them, I would definitely recommend you look at them and check them out. But her term nutritious movement is something that I would very much say foundation training represents and could be utilized as, but you need a balanced diet, plain and simple. Okay, I'm going to close out that and maybe it'll help. Let's just give it
a great time to run and get some water. Okay.
I'm going to show you foot position, and hopefully everybody can hear me and see me. I'm going to turn this down a little bit so you can see my feet. And I'm going to work somebody that I have looked up to for over a decade now, and even looked up to while I was in chiropractic school. I named Dr. Tim Brown. If you don't know Dr. Tim Brown, he developed some brilliant work, namely something called IntelliSkin, and he is by far one of the most, the top 1% of sports medicine doctors in the world. And what Doc told me as I was walking in, and I always am looking for ways to recruit the medial hamstring, the medial inner thigh, not the lateral hamstrings, but the medial hamstrings when I'm walking, because the recruitment of that medial hamstring and that pull through and hip extension, that's what makes the posterior chain accurately. So when you're walking, I want you to think of 2 toes on each foot, and it's not your big toe. It's the 2 toes just inside of the big toe. And those 2 toes, the 2 long ones, they lead the way forward. And when you're walking well, it's almost like they're lifting and trying to find the floor ahead of you and then pulling through as you take your step. You'll notice that when I walk, I'm not walking with my adductors and my groin muscles. I'm not, waddling side to side as I walk. I'm staying very long and lean. My 2 midline toes are leading the way, and it's almost as if I'm kind of convergent at my stride, even though I'm not. When I walk, I go heel, pinky toe, big toe. Heel, pinky toe, big toe, like they're grabbing every step, okay? When I run, it's different. When I run, it goes to the pad of my foot, and I disperse the weight differently. But when I'm walking, I'm trying to pull myself forward, and the biggest pulleys on your bottom are the hamstrings, the adductors, the glutes. Those 3 have to be communicating well in order for your walk to be extremely productive and helpful and posterior chain oriented. I think that would help.
Eric,
I'm going to open up again and get those questions. Yeah, what's up, Jess?
So real quick, I want to say for the cycling, so we've got the running program in there, but we don't have the cycling. But what I'll say is,
if you're right.
On YouTube,
I messed up.
Yeah, that's okay. But if we go, for the person want to know, if you go on YouTube and you go to our channel and you type in "Ride Better with Foundation Training," you'll see a workout from Eric and Sean, one of our lead instructors. That's about 8 minutes long, and then you can also do the old original video, the 12-minute workout. That was for Lance and cycling. So those are out there, guys. They're on YouTube and they're free.
Sorry, Stephanie. Gave you a little crap there. My apologies.
Yeah, there's been so many programs in the planning for streaming that it definitely blends together, you guys.
A couple people asked for Tim's name. It's Dr. Tim Brown, like the color brown.
He just had an article come up on in Surfline.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to pull that article up and share it with you guys. That's a great article. And you don't
Really
have to
good
read it, but I'm just
article.
going to show you the link so you can see it. I just got to find it. Give me a
It's
moment, please.
yeah, he touches on a lot of really good stuff, you guys. Great, really well done. They're going to break now that what they're doing is they set it up for the five, like I guess 5 pillars of the article. To each pillar is going to go into its own article. And the opening photo is
It might
Dr.
take me a
Tim
minute.
Brown with
It might
somebody
take me a minute to
around him.
find it. You know,
I
Tim
just
sent me the
Googled
link
Surfline.
too. Yeah, if you can find it, Jess, maybe pop it up.
They just got to type. Just Google everybody. Surfline. Go ahead, Eric. You keep going. I'll find it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. So I had a great question from Renee again. Renee is one of our instructors out in I want to say Copenhagen. Great dude, stuntman, powerhouse, still stays super fit. And I know that he's always trying to really understand the work. So I want to take a minute here and help him get this one. Diastasis recti. And Renee, I think we're starting to kind of go down a path here of what might be affecting some of what's going on with you, because it's the same imprint as the cochlear process, as that vertigo process. Diastasis recti happens typically in women, typically after birth, but not exclusively. All it really is when the pubic symphysis is where the two hemispheres of the pelvis meet. I think I should probably do this with anatomy. I got you in a second here. Let me do this right. Okay. Share it real quick and we'll be good to go. Oh, come on. Work with me here. Okay. So the pubic symphysis, right there. Now, that is more or less our center of gravity at the human body. That little blue dot, right between where the adductors insert. So adductor group is this big powerhouse of 3. Those are the adductors on each side. Those connect on either side of the junction of the two hemispheres of the pelvis called the pubic symphysis. That pubic symphysis, it's a powerhouse barometer and compass. And you'll notice the thing right here above it, that's called your linea alba. And behind that linea alba would be a lot of the transversus abdominis muscle fibers. The linea alba actually, I believe, is kind of on top of it, somewhat superficial to it. And it's that transversus abdominis that actually does deepen the internal tension of the abdomen. Now, what diastasis recti does is it wedges that pubic symphysis anteriorly, like a triangle. So the front of it gets ever so subtly broader than the back of it. And that ends up turning the femurs out just a little bit, like a pizza slice on the ski slope. No, not a pizza slice on the ski slope, like a backwards one, where your feet are turned out and your heels are converging, duck walking. That has a lot to do with the divergence of the pubic symphysis. When the pubic symphysis diverges, the abdomen above it, from the psoas muscles to the transversus abdominis to the rectus abdominis, all of those muscles cannot accurately contract to center. The pubic symphysis down here, this little hemisphere gathering of the pelvis, dictates the ability of the abdominal muscles to contract accurately. And when it wedges anteriorly, this midline is no longer tense. So the abdomen begins to have this divot, this width to its contraction. Instead of a long, tight, linear contraction, you get pinpoint contractions that look like bulges, that look like a mound or a push out of muscle, or in some cases, a hollow muscle. Now, how do we improve upon that? 2 things. Anchoring, which happens here, here, here. Oh, no, not really there. I'll spin him. And here, When we can access these medial hamstrings and groin muscles and adductor muscles well, we are actively, not the lateral hamstring, mind you, the medial hamstrings and groin muscles, we are actively pulling away from that divergence of the pubic symphysis, and we are retraining the adductors and the groin muscles to pull accurate center from below the pubic symphysis towards it. And we are also at the same time, by correcting the platform at the pubic symphysis, we are correcting the abdominal, lat, glute, and psoas and iliacus contractions, and all the deep external rotators too, the piriformis muscle that everybody's heard of, the sciatic nerve pathway, all of that is also alleviated during the correction of diastasis recti. And the correction of diastasis recti, the one that I have seen work better than anything I've ever seen, is really learning how to do anchored bridges and supine decompression as well as humanly possible. And when you dial those in well, you then take it to the kneeling decompression and kneeling founder. Same thing. You're dialing in the anchor below the pelvis and the expansion above above the pelvis as well as you can. And I have numerous people, some of them having as many as 3 or 4 children, that have told me that the change is not only significant, but it is life-changing, and it makes them feel strong again for the first time in quite some time. So I'm very proud of what we can do for diastasis when the patient is extremely active with it. On there, so this is the article, and Tim has been just an incredible friend and supporter of foundation training for many, many years. And you know, go read this article. He foundation training is one of many things he discusses in there. But if you don't know Tim Brown, go learn from him. He's got a ton of stuff online. He's got lots of videos and things that you can learn from, lots of interviews, and he's a really intelligent sports medicine guy. Somebody asked if I tie back the decompression stuff with vertigo. So I'll do that. Just it's a central structure that how aligned your body is. Edges outward at all. It changes the contraction of every muscle above it. Logical and pressure sensitive condition is very movement sensitive, and not always the pressure. Most of the time we're experiencing pressures around here unless we have sinus issues or drastic misalignment. It's coming from mostly here and occasionally even lower. Our body is this remarkable web of tissue. And anybody that thinks they know exactly where your symptoms are coming from is wrong. But a lot of us can make generalizations. And the generalization is that most of the time, what we experience from here up is a result of many things from here down. There's just more blood volume, there's more happening, and there's more changes that can occur below the head than above it. So chances are a lot of what's happening for vertigo, different things like that, headaches, cluster headaches, tension headaches, even migraines. Most migraines are very digestive and guttural in nature. If you're not looking at these things, if you're not correlating that symptoms come from elsewhere, I really, really ask you to do so. Just explore. There's so many ways that the body can manifest symptoms, and there's so many things that those symptoms can express and mean or be trying to tell you. And the better you get at being sensitive to yourself, overall, the better you get. I've seen it thousands and thousands of times now. Okay. Now, hey, Jess, what do you think about maybe taking me through a couple founders to finish up here?
Yeah, let's go. So let's do this, Eric. Why don't we do a founder with decompression breathing for anyone that wants to follow along, and then we'll do an intra-abdominal breath with the hip chop, and we'll just show
Perfect.
kind of where we play with both. So,
Perfect.
Okay, guys. So anybody that's going to do this, watch Eric on the first one. Eric, what I'll do is I'll take you through a founder initially. Let's go 3 integrated hinges into a static founder. And then I'll coach the decompression breath. So guys, watch this first round. Eric's going to reach his hips and hands away from each other. And then he's going to pull himself back up He'll do it 3 times, and the last one he'll hold. And hold it. Now, this is an example of 1 round. So go ahead and come out of it, Eric, and then I'm going to coach everybody through it, and we'll all meet in the founder. Okay, so let's start. 3 integrated hinges. Your toes are subtly turned in. You're finding the 3 points of contact on the feet. You can see Eric's taking his measuring sticks. So he's pulling his elbows wide. He's going to root into his feet. He's going to lengthen up through the crown of his head, and we'll go 1 nice, big, expansive decompression breath here. So he's thinking about breathing those back ribs wide for the walls behind him. He's going to let his arms float out off the line of his hips into that long wing position. So his hands float out. You notice his thumbs are kind of rotated back for the wall behind him. We're looking for that external rotation. Now, his hips lead the way. He's going to go slow and controlled for 3 reps. His chest is big. His neck is long. His hips and hands reach away. And just as slow, you guys are going to pull yourself back up. Let's go 3 times. The last one, meet in the founder. This is rep 2. His hips reach back behind the heels. Notice his knees are subtly bent and being tensioned back with the hips. His hips lead the way. The knees respond, unlock, and follow. The fingertips meet out in front. So now we're statically into our founder. Everybody check in. You're squeezing the fingertips. Your knees are subtly bent, which means your hips are reaching up and behind you. The weight's in your heels. You're looking at that sphere of tension. Maybe look just out over the top of your sphere of tension, 12 feet out in front of you, and think of lengthening up through the back of your neck while you gaze 12 feet out. You're squeezing the fingertips. You're reaching the hips and hands away from each other. And then think of a line from the bum through the top of the crown of your head, pulling those both ends away from each other. Bum and the crown of your head reach away, fingertips reach out. Now, slowly use the same tension to pull yourself back up nice and tall and come out of the founder. Eric's giving you the cue to use the glutes and hamstrings to pull yourself up. Now, we're going to demonstrate. Eric's going to show you guys a couple of the drill for an intra-abdominal breath. And so the simplest, easiest way to think about this, guys, is we're going to breathe the side oblique and the lowest abdominal. Eric, you want to bring your fingers in? So he's pushing his fingers in. This is the easiest way to do it, guys. In through his nose, he's going to push those fingers out on the inhale. And then relax, let it go. And let's do 2 or 3 of these. Everybody that's watching, fall in with us and do it along. Stand up nice and tall. You're poking into the side obliques, and you're breathing in through your nose and working to push those fingers out. Now, if you're doing this complete, you'd be getting the lower abdominal down towards your groin. You'd be getting around the back and the sides. And lastly, the front. So it creates this belt where Eric's showing you guys all the way around. And again, on the quarantine workouts, we do these drills very consistently. So we're going to work now to inflate that cylinder. Let's go 2 or 3 breaths, Eric. Just inflate that cylinder and let it go. So we've transitioned everybody from a decompression breath to an abdominal breath. Now, before we bring the breath in, Eric's going to show you the hip chop. So Eric, if you will, take your legs about hip width apart. I'm going to kind of do it with you guys. And Eric, kind of 45-degree angle yourself to the camera. Yep. So notice now, Eric's toes are turned out. So remember, this is our transition from foundation training to a more dynamic drill where we incorporate the breath. So what Eric's showing you guys, we internally rotate for foundation training, but it's important to remember it's corrective exercise. We're transitioning now to that dominant hip-driven hinge for the kettlebell, for the deadlift, for the squat. And so your knees need to be able to track your toes. The drill Eric's doing now is the hip chop. So he's chopping his hips back as the hips reach further back. So Eric, go just the chop and let the arms stay back behind you. So do a couple reps. He chops his hips slow and controlled. Boom. Come back up. He chops the hips. Boom. He comes back up. Now, chop the hips and hold for me. Now, guys, he's going to chop and go into that hinge and hold. So right now, as he reaches the hands out, he tensions the hips even further back. So that goal is that when you guys get into this position here where we chop initially, as I reach the hands out, I then go deeper into that hinge. But notice there's more knee bend with the hip chop. We're really getting into the hip extensor muscles of the body here. This dominant position. So I'll do one more time with you guys. I chop the hips back, and then I reach my hips and hands further away. I'm thinking about really spreading the floor, spreading the pockets of my pants out, and I drive up strong. I chop back, and then I reach away. Now, we can coordinate this with the breath. Take a breath into the abdominal. This is what it would look like. We breathe into the abdominal. I chop back. I reach. I come up. I let the air out. I breathe in. I chop. I tension. And I come up. Where you guys can progress that is then creating that brace where we breathe in. I contract it. I chop. And I tension. So what we're giving you guys is this drill transition where we're incorporating a lot of stuff from strength practices, and these are things I've taken from reading Pavel Satsulin's books, taking the Strong First courses. The hip chop is a drill for the kettlebell, that we're getting this dynamic, powerful position. We're being able to coordinate that breath, that when my bell is out in front of me, I contract everything. I inflate that cylinder, the bell comes down, my hips hinge into this powerful position, but I'm maintaining this stability to protect my spine. I power through, the bell is right in front of my chest, I'm contracting my glutes, my quads, I'm engaging my lats, I'm bracing the abdominal tight, and then I inflate that cylinder again, the bell comes down, my hips hinge, I contract, and you train this ability that you can protect your spine, powerfully load, boom, deliver all your power, inflate the cylinder, powerful, boom, deliver everything again. Can't stress it enough, fantastic practice. They have tons of great coaches out there that are Strong First. You know, we have a ton of foundation training instructors that have the certification, but I'm always going to stress, guys, I know a lot of coaches that have swung bells and they're great coaches, but I'm always going to hold anybody that I recommend to a gold standard of looking for either an RKC certified instructor or a Strong First kettlebell certified instructor. Those, and I say that because those are the courses I've gone to. Pavel is the guy that has led the way with all of those courses. And so I'm speaking from that. I know there's a lot of other courses out there that are probably really well, but for me to endorse and the trainers and guys that I work with in the fire service, those are the ones that we all have gone through and are like, yeah, they're next level. And I've done a lot of other kettlebell courses, and I'm not talking about
I got one more question. I want to take advantage of you being here, Jess. I want to take advantage of you being here real quick, Jess. Will you pop up real fast? I want to answer a question with you showing the exercise. So we have somebody that asked about a C7 nerve compression, and they've been giving things like nerve flossing, not from us, but from their physical therapist. So it's not going to look like the way that we do it. But I'd like to show how to get out of a C7 nerve compression. So what we're going to do is two things. We're going to do platter hands, and we're going to do mofos.
Okay.
So why don't you get into a lunge decompression? Nah. Go right leg back, left leg forward, and the person that asks the question, please pay attention. So in this lunge decompression, either side, in the lunge decompression, you're going straight up and down. So watch as Jesse just gets tall. He's just going to be as long as he can from the base of his skull to the hips. Perfect. He's squaring his hips up towards center like they're trying to close in the middle just a little bit. And now watch at his shoulders right there. As he externally rotates the shoulders, opens up the palms into that second position. So right there, notice that he's open at the chest and his neck is long. So Jesse, show how a shoulder shrug would look if it was messing you up here. Yeah, it's not that. We're not hugging up. Your shoulder joints are pulling apart, and it's as if you got a piece of paper below your armpits that you're trying to pinch. So with that, we're going to bring the arms forward in a glide until the inner forearms meet in front of us in what's called a cerviplatter position. as if you were holding a platter in front of you. Notice how Jesse's fingertips are moving away from each other, even though the midline of his forearms, his wrists, and his pinkies are touching. But do you see how wide his hands are, how much he's spreading his fingers apart? And pay very close attention to the fact that the elbows are moving towards each other, the forearms are touching, the inner lining of the pinkies are touching. The shoulders are not hiked up. He is pinching a piece of paper below his shoulder joints, below his armpits. He is pulling the shoulder joints down and wide, and he is pinching paper between his arm and armpit. The next iteration of this just continues it, advances it a little bit further from a serve a platter to a mofo position, where he is simply going to press his fingertips together. The elbows are still touching, the forearms are still touching, and he is going to, so face me for just a second. Face me, Jess. He's going to lift his elbows as high as he can without the forearms separating any further. And as far as he can go is plenty. Plenty. The breath pattern is the back of the rib cage and the front of the rib cage, 360-degree expansion. And the pressure under the arms and the lats is what is ultimately going to take you out of C7 compression and T1 and C6 compression, which are all infiltrating it. All right, go ahead and relax. You would do that on both legs. Woo! You could do that in almost any standing position we have, from founders to woodpeckers to different hinges, all different things, all different decompressions. But I really like it on the lunge decompression, doing it each side. It just tends to loosen up the neck substantially faster. But I'll be honest with you, I think I'm all out of answers.
Yeah, the only thing I want to add is just be cautious in those positions of the tendency to pin the scapulas back when you're going into, as Eric talked about, out here to that external rotation. Remember, it's happening at the shoulder joint. I'm not doing this and pinning. That's a common one that I've run into, especially with my weightlifters, of wanting to be boom here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. No, this went well. Thanks for doing this with us, everybody. Jess, I appreciate you doing it too. It's awesome. It's always fun. Thanks for all the quarantine videos you're helping everybody with. I know we're getting tons of good feedback on those.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
the only thing I want to say is the only thing I was going to say, guys, is that if you're enjoying this, get on the app, do your homework. App is homework. And if you're getting takeaways from this, go on, find one of our instructors, get some actual teaching, and you know, some of these chronic pains you guys are dealing with, they can very quickly help you put an end to it, or find the pattern that's leading to it. And then do the homework, stay consistent. Doesn't happen overnight, but if you don't do the work, ain't gonna work.
Couldn't agree more. Get on there, support us, and we'll support you.
Have a great day, everybody. Hey guys, Jesse and Eric here with Foundation Training. We talked to you a little bit about decompressing the spine.
Here at Foundation Training, we like to make decompression just a little bit more active. So some of the stuff we're going to teach you in this next little video here is going to show you how to align and decompress on your own. Active decompression, the way that I talk about it with Foundation Training, is not the pinpoint isolation of your L4, L5 disc herniation. We're not going to teach you to pull that material back towards center somehow. That's not what I'm talking about with active decompression. What I mean is we're going to teach you to take the surface area of your torso and expand upon it. We're going to teach you to take your weight, your mass, the amount of gravity you're fighting and taking up, and we're going to stop the focal points of pressure that cause you pain from existing beyond their healthy ranges. We're going to teach you to disperse the force of your torso powerfully. It comes through breathing, and Jesse here is going to teach you a couple poses to help you.
All right, guys, you can watch this first one, rewind the video, do it yourself if you'd like. We're going to start by setting Eric up in about a hip width to shoulder width distance between his legs. He's going to bring that subtle degree of internal rotation in. We're going to apply an isometric. He's going to go into what we call anchoring. He finds those 3 points of contact on both feet. He roots through them. He connects everything. He's working to isometrically contract everything that's attaching those femurs up to his pelvis. He'll float his hands out to his sphere of tension, height of the heart. He's going to close the kinetic chain, maintain that connection here. Notice he's got a little bit of external rotation in the elbows. He's lengthened up through the neck. Now he's gonna focus on his breath, expanding the rib cage uniformly, posterior, lateral, anterior rib cage uniformly expands and elevates. On the exhale, think about wrapping and pulling that transverse abdominis. And this is the work. Maintain the connection from the feet to the fingertips to the crown of the head while you use that breath with every inhalation to expand and elevate, every exhalation to maintain the space that you're creating on the inhale to the best of your ability. If you're doing it right, it becomes a very active process. I'm gonna have Eric take one more nice big breath. All of his intent is lengthening up and through, keeping the fingers, keeping the feet rooted, teaching his body how to work and connect as one efficient system, letting it remember where it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to carry itself in space.
Focal points of tension give you a lot of pain very often. Don't collapse into yourself. Don't breathe so shallow. Learn the mechanisms, the mechanical mechanisms of breathing powerfully, of taking tension off of the focal points of your spine and dispersing them throughout the muscle chains of your body. That's what foundation training is. Go to stream.foundationtraining.com if you have no idea what we're talking about and would like to learn a lot more.
Know your body better than you know your phone.
Know your phone better than you know his body.